You know what? We're all humans.
I know.
Oh, we're live, but it's just me for some reason that I can see. I hope you guys can see. You can see Cristina. So, hello everybody. I'm Allie Wyatt. It is so nice to see you all today. We have a really exciting session with Cristina from True Beauty Ventures. I'm going to go into her background in just a bit. But first, I wanted to remind you all to please join the waitlist for our 10th House Consumer Brand Cohort. This is for our founders who are building in beauty and wellness, in consumer categories. We kick things off. This is different with 10th House this year, is that our full year membership includes kicking off with an accelerator called Founders Operating Manual. Guys, we created this based off of everything that we've seen are the biggest pain points for you guys. And whether or not you guys are experiencing one of these things right now, which I doubt if you are a founder, you're not experiencing one of the questions that we answer in this. But even if you are not, you must do this, whether it's with us or without us, to build your foundations for your business. I actually do this process every single year, so it's relevant every year. It's evergreen. So if you have gone through part of the process or not, just as a quick overview, that includes what is your founder role and how are you operating within your business? Who are the people you need to hire within that? So thinking about team building, then it is your KPIs and benchmarks. So your key performance indicators or your goals for your business. What are those drivers that you're looking at to determine whether or not your business is successful? And then the third piece is going through your financials. So actually ensuring, and we're going to talk about this with Cristina because she has a great financial background and can, I'm sure, speak to it from an investor perspective as well, but ensuring you know your financials in a really big way. And then finally, of course, you're going to need to get customers. You need to make money. So how are you doing that? What is your go-to-market strategy? What is your marketing strategy? All of those things are things that we review in the accelerator. You will come out on the other end feeling really good. And the people that teach it are, it's hard to be of the same ilk, but are of the same ilk as a Cristina, where they are experts. They have been through the trenches. They are in the trenches right now. And so they are the exact people to be walking you through how to be thinking about your business and succeeding. So without further ado, I'm going to get into Cristina because I know you guys have so many questions for her. And I have so many questions for her. But Cristina Nuñez is a longtime beauty operator, investor, and brand builder, and she spent her career at the intersection of consumer strategy, finance, and storytelling. Like, what a perfect triad of things, by the way. In 2020, she co-founded True Beauty Ventures as GM of Clark's Botanicals and held True Beauty Ventures, a sector-specialized investment firm focused on beauty, health, and wellness. And before TBV, she served as GM of Clark's Botanicals and held leadership roles at Lara Geller Beauty, working across brand, operations, supply chain, and marketing. And her private equity career began at L. Catterton and 10 Gram Capital Partners, and she built her financial foundation at UBS Investment Bank and consumer and retail team. And she writes the widely read Substack newsletter, Beauty is My Business, and is a regular voice in WWD, Business of Fashion, Beauty Matter, and Vogue Business. You were really, truly a leader in beauty, but I want to get into your origin story where you went from being an operator to an investor, because I think that is such a unique perspective and a very helpful arc, of course. So you started off as a banker, you then became an operator, you then became a PE investor, and now you are a fund founder. So when did you first realize that beauty was the category you wanted to really invest in and bet your career on?
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you, and I appreciate the intro. And as you said, the path to get here was definitely not traditional. You said banker, operator, PE investor, fund investor, definitely not a straight line, but a bit of a circuitous path, which is the way that these things go when you're building your career. And when I think back at what I wanted to do when I would grow up, beauty didn't pop in my mind. I was always attracted to beauty on a personal basis. I would say, this is years before all the tweens were invading Sephora. I was very into it, and I would watch my mom put her makeup on, and I would want to, do my hair and put on makeup going to school when I was even, too young to actually wear makeup. So I was very drawn to it, but I never thought that I could actually build a career around it. That felt like an entirely different world. So I did start in more traditional finance roles, but when I did actually find myself working in beauty in one of my first operating roles, which was at Laura Geller, something just clicked. And I think what surprised me was how much I would fall in love with the industry. And really, a lot of that was a result of how analytical it is. I think people think
Yeah.
about beauty and they think about beautiful product and really great marketing and pretty pictures and models. And yeah, all those things obviously matter tremendously. But, when it actually comes down to it, to build a real, truly successful beauty business, you have to be maniacal about the numbers. And beauty is actually an industry that uses data, or should use data, to inform every business decision. And so that was actually very surprising to me, and something that I was really drawn to from the very beginning. And because of my background in finance, I was good at it. And so I found myself being good at something in a category that I personally loved. And it opened the door for me to think, wow, I can really actually become a professional in this industry. I think the other thing that really, really drew me in was the women. I mean, what other industry truly, right, has this concentration of incredibly powerful female founders and female executives and leaders to work alongside with and to learn from? Like, I really
I
can't
love
name another industry, right? So especially for me, coming from finance and more male dominated roles, and there were more men in leadership positions. I talk about this often. I didn't really have a female mentor until I got to the beauty industry. And so coming from that type of background and landscape, the beauty industry was a breath of fresh air. And, I kind of never looked back from there.
So you started in banking and then you went into an operator role. I'm curious what you learned in operations. Like, what was starkly different? Because my husband, for example, comes from the banking world and he'd never run a company that was like a product company. And so there's a lot of theoretical that he would, impose on companies that he was working with, but also that he was always sort of pushing me on, which I think is great, right? I'm curious with you, what was different about operating in beauty versus investing in beauty? And how has that maybe informed how your perspective and philosophy today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, the things that I learned that you can't learn from a spreadsheet or a financial report is actually everything that really matters. And I actually think about it this way. Brand is like the human body, where all the parts have to work together and they have to work in harmony for things to actually function well, right? And it takes an enormous amount of behind the scenes work to make even a simple movement happen. And so I think about a brand like the human body, and I didn't fully appreciate sitting in an investor seat all the things that were really happening behind the scenes to make that body work. And so when I was running operations and was the GM of a skincare brand called Clark's Botanicals, which was the role that I took after Laura Geller. And even when I was at Laura Geller in various operational roles, I felt that every single day that I was part of this body, this mechanism. And, again, sitting in an investor seat in my prior roles, it'd be easy for me to say, we need better margins. We need to launch more products. We got to go find more revenue. But like actually sitting back and seeing, oh my gosh, the months of planning that go behind that, the supplier negotiations, the team coordination, the managing of people, right? You're moving like people, the regulatory hurdles, like all of that stuff that have to happen in order for any of those things that the investor wants to become real. Like those are, I mean, I didn't have a full appreciation for all of that. And, even in small companies where speed is an advantage and being nimble is an advantage, you're still moving a lot of moving parts in synchrony if you want things to actually happen and happen well. And so for me, and by the way, it takes a little bit of luck too, not just
Right.
having everything work together, but it does take a little bit of luck. But I think that experience really changed the way that I engage with founders now, the empathy that I have for them, where I kind of ask them, it's not just, can you do this, right? But it's like, what does it actually take to do this? Instead of maybe, why isn't this done yet? Where are we on this? Like, I have a full appreciation for the entire kind of organism that is a brand and a business. And I get asked all the time by women who either are in investing roles or trying to get into investing roles, how valuable the operational experience really is. And to me, I mean, it's truly invaluable. It doesn't mean that you can't be a great investor without it. I know many investors who are very empathetic and all of that and understand how a business works. But if you haven't been in the seat, it's, I just don't think you fully grasp it and can, I think I can be a great thought partner and collaborator and sometimes coach and therapist for founders because of that background.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's just invaluable to have that perspective and see it from both sides for sure. I want to go into, because you see thousands of brand in your role at TBV. I want to understand what makes a brand fundable and some of the things that some of these founders who might be going into a fundraising process can start to learn from and take with them in their journeys to help them be more efficacious. So one of the questions I had was, obviously you're looking at hundreds of brands, maybe thousands. I actually am interested to know, how many do you see roughly a year?
We have looked at over 5,000.
Yeah.
It just it's insane. I mean, we've looked probably more than that. We've lost count, but definitely over 5,000. And I mean, we invest in like 0.5%, less than 1% of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we look at a lot.
So there's a lot of filtering that you need to do.
There is.
Right off the bat, in the first 10 minutes of looking at a pitch or hearing a pitch, what signals tell you that a founder maybe is one that you're going to want to look at more deeply?
Yeah. I have to be honest. It's just for the founders in the room, because I think they need to hear it. Investors are not spending 10 minutes on your deck. It's not even 10 minutes. I mean, it could be, sometimes it's just 1 minute, which I know can be discouraging at times because you put so much effort into it. And by the way, I fundraise, right? I fundraise for
be able to lock attention and grab attention very fast.
100%. And it doesn't mean they're not going to go back later, right? And if they're interested, spend more time and digest it. But when you're first meeting or sending a deck to an investor, especially if it's a cold intro and you're just sending the pitch deck blind, they're not going to be spending 10 minutes on it. So I want to clarify that. And I can get into a little bit of like the things that I am looking for. But to answer kind of your question about what makes a brand fundable and kind of what are we looking for in the first 10 minutes? At TBV,
person-to-person pitch.
Yeah, it could be a person-to-person pitch, 100%, which, by the way, we prefer if we can meet founders in person first. But, with TBV, everything starts with the brand and the founder. And, those are two things that we absolutely cannot get wrong in our business and what we do, right? So in that first minute of reviewing the deck or that first interaction with a brand founder, we're asking ourselves, does this brand have a genuine point of view? Does the founder feel true and differentiated in their why, and do they have a lot of conviction behind what they're building? And, I'm also trying to assess some traits of the founder. Like, can I tell that they have a really strong point of view and a good North Star, but they can also be coached and they're a good learner. So I'm assessing the brand, the opportunity, the white space, the product idea, if it's in like a very early stage phase. And I can't try the product yet. If it is if they have physical products, even better, send it to us, bring it, let us touch and feel and play with it. But I'm also really assessing the founder. And, I think that the brand and the founder, especially at the early stages, are inevitably tied together. Like you can't really separate one from the other. By the way, over time, those need to stand on their own. But at the beginning, it's so intermingled. And I think about a brand in our portfolio like Crown Affair, where Diana Cohen is a walking embodiment of the brand, and her relationship to the brand and to her community, feels like it's irreplaceable from day one. And those elements are really important to me because I think so much of the brand direction emanates from that founder. And if a founder has specific superpowers, you better believe I'm spending those first few minutes really assessing what those are. Do they matter to the brand? And do they, are they lacking in certain areas where then I can think about, okay, I can complement this pretty easily with team and with hires.
Cristina, question on the superpower piece, because
Yeah.
For some founders, they're like, oh, I maybe I didn't come from a beauty background, so I have no business building in that. And I personally disagree with that. Like, can you speak a little bit more to what those superpowers might be and how to sometimes communicate those? Because I also see with female founders, a lot of times they undersell themselves massively in their ability to be that person to build that business.
Yeah. I think not having beauty experience is not a deal killer at all. In fact, you can bring really great fresh ideas that that you're inspired by other industries, other categories from an innovation perspective, design, packaging, etc. And that can actually make you look even more differentiated from other beauty brands that are out there. We actually, one of our brand founders, Cynthia Sakai, who's the founder of Evolve Together, which is a luxury, everyday essentials, personal care brand. She came from fashion and from jewelry. And so much of that design and aesthetic is embedded into the brand. But then instead of looking at the beauty industry for packaging, she's like, you know what? I really like what food and other consumer packaged goods brands are doing over here. And let me take inspiration from that. And so I actually think it makes you really open-minded to looking, outside of the industry and also seeing how the consumer is experiencing everything in their lives, not just beauty brands, but, other categories. So I think that's a benefit where I would want to see it supplemented is, you don't come from this industry, maybe it makes sense for you to bring on a president, GM, chief of staff, like somebody early on that has the beauty experience, because there are nuances to this category for sure. And there are easy mistakes that you can make that if you have somebody as a partner, whether that's, on your team or even an investor like us, you bring us on early and we can help guide you to, help you avoid making those mistakes that are very specific to the beauty industry, because we've seen them, we've experienced them ourselves, and we have those scars. And so I just think surround yourself with the right people that can inform you best about the industry, but it's definitely not a category killer at all, or a deal killer at all. And in fact, for me, some of the characteristics I'm looking for are more, I'd like to think about superpowers in a couple buckets, if you'll let me, go into them.
Please.
I think about, the first superpower really being the brand visionary. And does do you drive the brand DNA, the voice, you have a clear point of view of what you want this brand to be, its positioning, how it feels, how it looks, everything. You're driving, it doesn't mean you have to be a creative designer, right? But you're driving kind of the creative vision and the ideas that are really emanating from you as the brand founder. So that's one bucket. The other bucket is product, right? You could be an amazing product developer. You can have, be a chemist. You can have really great experience developing product, and product is your superpower. And that is obviously incredibly important because people are repurchasing a product because it works, not, they can purchase it once because it looks pretty and it's a brand and they saw an influencer talk about it, but the repurchase behavior comes from the product actually delivering. So people, can be experts in the product development process. You have those that are demand generators. They connect, they either have their own following, for example, or they really know how to connect with community, engage, and drive revenue. They convert people. So you can put kind of like creators in that bucket, or just really good salespeople into that bucket. And then you have the operator, that those that can actually manage the day-to-day, can lead teams. Not every founder is cut to do that. There are rare exceptions where they might have that superpower plus some of the other ones that I just talked about. But that operator role is easily augmented. And then the other superpower, because to me it's so critical, is are they a partner and can they collaborate with someone like us? And going back to being coachable and wanting advice and guidance. And so I look at all those superpowers, and I hope founders have more than one. But for me, it's really identifying what those superpowers are, how meaningful they are to the brand, and then again, where I need to augment as an investor. And so in those pitch conversations or just the multiple interactions that I like to have with founders, I'm constantly assessing that. And then also validating it, right? Like talking to people in the industry, making sure that, they have had similar experiences with that founder.
So you talked about the characteristics that go into making a founder great, right? And you did say that the founder is the most important thing. And by the way, founders, I know I talked about our founders operating manual, but this is the first step that we take is we go through the process of identifying your superpowers so that you can then, like Cristina talked about, you can augment with a team. Because I believe in this so fundamentally. And if you don't do this first, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and a lot of energy and spending unnecessary effort. The other piece is obviously the metrics. So can you talk a little bit about what are those metrics or benchmarks that you're looking for in the early stages? And also at what point do you invest, right? Do businesses, when they come to you, when are they investable, just by way of maybe revenue or whatever your sort of threshold?
I think to answer that last question, it really depends. We are very open. We come in early. Ideally, we do see some traction because then you can diligence the proof. But sometimes we come in pre-revenue, and then you're really banking on the founder and their ability to execute, and the brand and the differentiation, and the excitement around, being something that's new and fresh to the market. But yes, I mean, the metrics are very important. I talked about a lot of the intangibles, but the metrics are important. And I would say, the first thing that we really focus on is gross margin. And we're looking at, 70+% really in beauty. And that's going to vary by category. So people are like, oh, what about skincare and hair care? It will vary. Some categories inevitably lend themselves to higher margin versus others. Obviously depends on your price point and your channel of distribution and all of that. But I really would love founders to, as they're building their businesses, just mind the margin. Margins are there. If they're not strong, they can make everything harder down the road. Everything downstream is harder down the road. If you have a high gross margin, you're able to invest more in your team, in your marketing, and in other areas. If you don't, that means you're not really left with a lot of profit to be able to invest. So you're probably going to have to raise more money along the road. Raising more money means more dilution for you as a founder. So think about the margin. The second one is retention, repurchase behavior. I talked about the importance of product. Good product gets you to buy once. Great product gets you to buy again and again. And excellent product might make you a lifetime customer. And so I want to understand if a brand has been launched and there's data to analyze over a certain period of time, are people actually coming back? And that's where you actually figure out, do you have a product or do you have a brand? And so the more data I have, and
what window are you looking at for that? For example, like if they launched maybe a year ago, it's like, do you want like a full year's worth of data? Is it 6 months?
I mean, ideally it's a full year's worth of data, but also depends on the category, right? Like if you're launching skincare, right, you might be going through a moisturizer every month. Or a foundation complexion makeup product, you might be going through that at a higher frequency than you would, let's say, fragrance, right?
Yeah.
When you buy a juice, you buy 50 ml bottle, and that could last you for a long time. Doesn't mean you're not going to want to come back and try more within a brand, but it's, it's a different use up rate. So it really depends on the category. But yes, ideally you have at least a year's worth of data to understand like how your cohorts are behaving. But if you have more, that's even better. So it's something that
I was just sorry to interrupt. I was going to ask about pre-launch too. Like, what if you have not yet launched your product? Like, are there any signals where you will go? You said in certain cases you will go that early.
Yeah.
Sort of so you use there.
No, that's a great question. So I think I would ask myself, is this product something that could become habitual?
Yep.
Is this product something that is not just like embedded in as a part of your routine, but maybe something that like becomes a ritual for you, something that can be so enjoyed and has such strong results. Again, if it hasn't launched yet, you don't know, but maybe the testing shows that it has really strong results. If it's a clinical skincare product, maybe there's been already some clinicals done, or there's been consumer perception or some kind of consumer studies that show, wow, this actually has a great result. But it's the result, and then also is the consumer experience one that is frictionless, right? So I have seen brands where, I don't know, I mean, the product is amazing and it has great results, but you have to mix it yourself at home and you have to do, 10 different steps. And the consumer is probably not going to want to do that as much ease as something that they can just integrate easily into what they're currently doing. And then they enjoy it so much that they look forward to using it again. And that's where it becomes more of a ritual and an experience. And they end up kind of feeling more emotionally connected to it than, let's say, just, another product that they have to begrudgingly do, right? You want to enjoy doing the product. So I think, certain categories lend themselves more to that too, especially those that might have a subscription element to it. So that, if it's pre-launch, but there's an attachment where people can get on a subscription because let's say it's an ingestible brand in wellness or beauty, something that has that use up rate that, you constantly would have to replenish it if it works. I think I look for those characteristics if it hasn't launched yet. But yeah, anything that could just become a habit where like, it's like you're tying your shoes. Do you think about tying your shoes? You don't think about tying your shoes. It's a natural thing that you do. You know what the lace feels like. You know what shoe you put on first. Like it just kind of happens naturally. That I want a brand to integrate into your life naturally, where it's like, yep, I'm putting on my Crown Affair leave-in conditioner, which I do every single day, right? Like without fail, whether I wash my hair or not, because I love how it makes my hair feel, and I know it'll, I know the results of it. And the smell, yeah.
I love the smell.
We love it. We love it. So kind of long-winded explanation there, but yeah, something that has the ability to create a habit that you really enjoy. And then I think the other metric is just measuring any way to measure efficiency. So, some people will look at LTV to CAC, and we want that ratio to be 3 to 1. And, if you're not necessarily marketing digitally, and you're more, let's say it's more organic traction, whatnot, obviously that is helpful too, the blend of both, because then you can have more efficiency overall in your marketing. But at the end of the day, when you invest in your marketing, you want it to return more than the dollar that you put in. And so just measuring marketing efficiency overall is another kind of hard metric that we will spend time analyzing.
And maybe if they've already built out newsletters or a social following, then they're already one step ahead in creating that efficiency.
And and when something's like pre-revenue, obviously I can't analyze the metrics I just walked through, but I also want the founder to have an understanding that those are important metrics, not because they matter to me, the investor, because they matter to them to manage their business and to make business decisions. And so it's like, I want to make sure that the founder has a mindset towards these are the metrics and the tools that help me manage my business, not stuff I have to report to my investor. Like these are actually like, these can help me unlock growth. And it's kind of my trajectory and it's my path forward is getting to these specific metrics over time and having goals that, you talked about KPIs at the beginning of this session. And like,
Yeah.
I want to see your KPIs. They don't have to be the same as mine, but I want to see
Yeah.
yours. You having them alone is, says a lot about you as a founder.
And that is step 2 of our founder's operating manual, is identifying what are those drivers, right? That you're constantly looking at. In terms of the time to seek investment, can you speak a little bit to when you think it's most appropriate to do so? Like at what point in time do you say, now is the time to go out and raise capital? Because I think there are brands that maybe go raise capital in order to build the business. And there are others that use it as fuel. But are there any specific triggers that you would say these are good hard and fast rules to look at and say, okay, now it's time to fund?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that there are hard, fast rules. I would say one hard, fast rule that I can think of is the thinking that no matter at what point in time you raise, you want to raise it before you absolutely desperately need it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, because that's the worst time to fundraise, because when you've run out of runway, you desperately need it. That's not a compelling story. Investors want to invest behind growth. So if you desperately need it, not a good time to raise. Maybe you waited too long, you mismanaged the business, or a lot of reasons why that happens. So that would be one hard, fast rule. And I think another one is, if you can, right, invest after you have something to show. And the best time is when you either have enough of a signal, if it's very early, or you can actually show traction, that an investor will lean in, because investors want to invest behind proof as much as possible. We're trying to limit risks. So the more that we can prove out that there's actually something here and there's product market fit, and there's traction, that's an exciting time for us to raise, for us to invest, and for you as a founder to raise. But I think like the founders are always juggling, sitting in their seat saying, okay, yes, do I need more capital or do I need more traction? But I need the capital to get the traction. And without, so it's this like chicken and the egg situation. And I would say, if you can get meaningful traction without diluting yourself, right? If there's any way, in a like super scrappy way, that you can do this, do that first. I'll give you an example. I can't name the brand yet, but we just invested in a super exciting brand where the founder was able to build her brand and launch it and put it out into the world on her DTC and on social for $50,000. I don't know how she did it, but she did it for $50,000. She didn't have a ton of traction. She probably had like a month, 50.
Yeah.
She didn't have, she had like a couple months worth of data by the time we actually invested. And it really wasn't super meaningful because it was incredibly early. There wasn't repeat purchase or anything yet, but she showed some traction with very limited capital. And it allowed us to get a flavor for what she's building and also to see how she works as a founder. And so that for us was the proof that we needed to back founder and to back brand. So every bit of proof that you can demonstrate helps in investor conversations, and it makes the next conversation you have that much better. So, you have hit a certain milestone and you have certain proof points, share it with the investors that you've built relationships with, and keep them updated on what's going on so that they can kind of see, oh, wow, she's or he, or they're really making progress. They're really moving in the direction that they said they were going to move. And don't overpromise and underdeliver, because that's something that I've seen before, where it's like, oh, we're going to do, in our first year, we're going to do 5 million of revenue. And then they, update me and they're at like 1 million. Right. And so it's kind of, I remember what you showed me in that pitch deck where it was like 5, 30, 60, and you don't want to do that. You do not want to do that. That's out in the world. And then people are going to question your, credibility, and whether you just put that out there just to fundraise.
So more questions. We have some great questions coming in from the audience, so you guys keep it up. But something somebody asked, which actually is a really good follow-on to this, is how much runway do you suggest they raise for? And like, And then how much should you raise over that amount or to that amount if
Yeah.
you want to be safe, right? So
Yeah.
what I mean by this, guys, is like if the runway is 18 months runway and that to you equals $2 million, do you raise $2 million or do you go out and raise $3 million?
Well, I would say it's very difficult to raise any money right now still. So,
Yeah.
I do think you want to size your fundraise to your strategy and what you're trying to accomplish. I would say, there are certain reasons why people come to us for a fundraise. Sometimes it's I need to launch my brand and I have to raise a bunch of money because I need to invest in R&D and clinicals and this because it's very tech heavy, and it requires a lot of startup costs to get it going. I have people that come to me because they say, hey, I have a couple years worth of DTC data that I did with the friends and family round, but now guess what? Sephora and Ulta just called me and they want to launch me. So I need money to launch retail, which is very
Yeah.
working capital intensive. And that really depends on the size of the retail launch. Are you launching all doors at Sephora? Are you launching half a fleet? Are you launching 20? Right? Are you launching in 4 shelves? Are you launching on, on 1 shelf? Right? So there are a lot of that sizing really comes down to what your uses of capital will be. And there are certain situations that may trigger that, which are very positive ones, like a retail launch where investors are probably going to scramble and they're going to want to get in line to invest because you're investing behind growth. There are other scenarios where, okay, I just launched this and I just need a little bit of capital, going back to my proof points comment, to get some proof points on DTC and Amazon and social channels, TikTok shop, let's say, right? Which is the route that I would go if I were launching a brand, and I would want to build traction and social proof and do it in a way that, is less capital intensive. In those scenarios, I don't want to raise a ton of money because I need the proof before I can get higher valuation. So if I'm raising for the first time and I'm really just trying to launch for the first time in my first year of business on social channels, you're not going to have, a super high valuation. So you want to control for dilution. So you might not want to raise $3 million, right? You might want to raise 1 to 2 if you can, so that you can launch on those channels, build out some team, and invest in marketing to build your brand awareness, because then that will hopefully get the flywheel going. So you have a year or 2 of success on your online channel before you launch into retail. And then guess what? You'll probably have to raise again, because if you launch in retail, it's that working capital intensive nature that I talked about that's going to require an additional raise, but you're bigger and you're raising you're raising because you have a PO in hand from a retailer, which means you're probably going to have a higher valuation and you can start to control for dilution. So there's no one size fits all. I think it's all strategy. And it's, honestly, take an honest look at your brand and the category that you're in. There are some categories with a lot of tailwind right now that everyone's trying to get into. And if you're in one of those categories, you might have an easier time raising money. It's not going to be easy. It's never easy, but you might have an easier time. And so maybe you want to raise a little extra because you want to make sure you have enough runway to get you to that milestone. So you asked, is it a year? Is it 18 months? Is it 2 years? I can't answer that until I know what the milestone is that you're trying to hit and how long it might take you to get to that milestone. What you don't want to happen is you raise money, you don't hit the milestone, but you're running out and you have to raise again, but you don't have much to show for it, right? So that's the other thing. Whether you raise 1 million or 2 million, you got to make that work for you as much as you can and be as capital efficient as possible. Question every dollar, where it's going into, what kind of ROI you're getting on that. Be in the numbers. Sometimes founders don't feel comfortable looking at the financials and spending time in the P&L. Spend time in it. Look at your cash. Look where it's going. Question if you need that super fancy printed inner carton. Do you need it, or can you get rid of that to bring your cost of goods down a little, right? So there's a lot that I would say founders are juggling all the time. But after you've raised money, the biggest mistake is you put it in your pocket and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go spend it. Like, no,
Yeah.
question everywhere it's being spent, and have that rigor and that discipline across your team, so that they also, operate like you, right, with a founder's mindset.
And again, guys, not to keep bringing it back to us, but Christina just talked about something important that we teach you guys in our accelerator, and that's to know your numbers. Again, like you said, you don't need to be the CFO of your business if that's not your background. In fact, for most of you, I would encourage you not to be the
Yeah.
CFO of your business, because you need somebody dedicated for that, or you can have an outsourced CFO, but you do need to have a command of your numbers. You do need to understand all the assumptions. You need to understand the key benchmarks and the key KPIs that we've been talking about that are really driving the success or failure of your business. Because that way, like Christina's talking about, you can turn on and off levers and then make decisions accordingly. But
And I think founders can sometimes undervalue the importance of that role because they're so in like the front end of the business. But
yeah,
those numbers, like that forecast, that model, that's your roadmap. And so you need to have a thought partner, a good thought partner who's along the ride, with you, who's your counterbalance, who is helping you question those decisions because of the impact that it might have on your P&L, and that what that means for, being able to invest in other areas, especially if you don't have that background and you're not super comfortable there. I would say, it's not just, a bookkeeper, just an accountant. It's just the numbers. Like it's your strategy. You're 100% right on saying that, Allie.
So I have one more question for you, and then we're going to go into rapid fire. I feel like I could keep going forever and ever, but we are getting close to time. One more question for you, if you can answer this quickly, and then we are going to go into true rapid fire. And that's, we talked about how it's less than 10 minutes the most investors are spending on a deck. But when a deck hits your inbox, what are those things that make it stand out?
Yeah.
Like,
so
clear the clutter.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot of clutter. And as I said, I see so many decks. I would say within the first like 20 seconds, I would ask yourself, within the first 20 seconds, does this person know exactly what my brand is, right? If somebody came into your room and shook you in the middle of the night and woke you up and said, what is your brand? Like what you say in those 20 seconds, like that is what someone needs to walk away with. And don't make me, the investor, go searching for it on slides. Like, wait, what is this? Like, it should be super, super clear within the first 20 seconds, because I can tell you, we won't go searching for it if it's not clear from the very beginning. And then make sure the story you're telling and the numbers tell the same story. So just make sure that those are tied. And then I think, when we get decks all the time where the narrative is really beautiful, the financials kind of contradict or they're overhyped. Like I like them to be together. I want to be able to connect the dots between your vision, your story, and what the financial path tells me. And then I think like I want the deck to look like the brand and reflect the brand. If your brand is beautiful and your product and your aesthetic is beautiful, and then the deck is meh or generic, that kind of says a lot to me. Not that I want people to be spending a ton of money designing decks, but to me, it's the value of how you value your work and what you put in front of people. And it kind of that desire to want to showcase yourself in the best light possible. And so I would say, especially if you're a cold inbound, I haven't really heard of your brand before, or you don't even exist in the world yet, like that deck is a representation of what your brand will look and feel like. So, spend time on that.
Totally agree. Okay. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions since we are getting close to the end. If you can answer in 5 words or less,
gosh.
I know that's really tough. First question is, what are some reasons you didn't end up investing in a company?
Oh gosh, in 5 words or less. I would say the hustle wasn't real. Not real.
You can do in one sentence. How about that?
Okay. No, I mean, going back to like spending time with the founder, where I didn't feel like they would break through walls.
Yeah.
And a founder needs to have the vision, but they also need to be able to like do the thing.
Yeah.
And so if I spent time with a brand and it's like with a founder and I just don't get that, they're not, we at TBV, we say, that's our type of founder. And if they're elements of that, the hustle, coachability, desire to learn, the vision, there's certain elements that weren't there, but I think that hustle one is a big one for us.
Love it. And then let's see the next. Okay, 1 second. I got another question for you.
Okay.
Biggest green flag you see at a founder?
I think coachability for sure. When they have a point of view, I want them to have a point of view, but I also want them to be a good listener. And they're willing to learn. They're willing to admit when they don't know something and they lean into us. And so I think that trait is one that really compounds alongside being, a hustler and pushing to make stuff happen against all odds. But I think coachability and the hustle.
And then just a final note for the founders who are maybe trying to figure out whether or not they're ready to fundraise. What do you want to leave with them?
Yeah. I don't think you're ever going to feel ready, period. And so to me, it's not a question of if you're ready, but it's a question of whether you're resourceful, resilient, and surrounded by the right people, because this is not an easy thing as we know. So you need resources and your tribe and your people. And if you have all of those things, I would say it's a go. And quite frankly, we want to meet with you.
Awesome. Cristina, this has been so enlightening, so helpful. I think everybody is chiming in to let you know what an amazing session it was. So appreciate your time. We know you're super busy. I mean, thousands of companies but also
there's a lot of brands in this industry.
Yeah, that's a good thing for people to remember too, just to give insight into, the process that a VC goes through and the fact that there are so many brands out there. So this is very helpful. You all that are watching, you can do this. We are here for you, and everything that Cristina talked about, I swear we didn't tee that up, but those are all things that we walk you through and help you decide as a thought partner. So if you are trying to figure out when is the right time to fundraise, do I need to fundraise? That's something that we'll take you through as well. So hopefully you'll join us with 10th House, and good luck, you guys. You're doing great work out there, and it's a hard and courageous thing to be a founder. But the world needs more of them.
The world needs you.
Yes, indeed. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Cristina. Thank you so much.